What's up, savvy expats? In our last video, we covered the 5 struggles of moving to the Philippines in part 1, and in today's video, we're going to cover several more struggles of moving to the Philippines here on part 2. As always, if you want to show your gratitude to the channel, everything will be linked down below. Alright, without wasting time, let's get into it. So kicking off this list, the first struggle for many expats moving to the Philippines is leaving behind Western life. Depending on where you choose to live, adjusting to life in the Philippines may not be your cup of tea. For example, if you choose to live in the metropolitan cities of the Philippines, be it Cebu City, BGC, or Makati, there's not a whole lot to adjust to. Life is already westernized and living standards are typically up to par with your home country. But the only caveat is the cost of living is tremendously higher than the provincial areas of the Philippines. Now, if you want to experience the Philippine island life where cost of living is much lower, you'll probably move to places like Bacolod, Iloilo, Batangas, Cavite, Laguna, Bohol, Dumaguete, or Palawan. But the trade-off of moving to these places is that you leave behind the modern conveniences you had in your westernized country. Whether it be modern health facilities, international grocery stores, or well thought out infrastructure, so on and so forth, a lot of these things may not be available. So the question to ask yourself is, do I still want to hold on to the Western lifestyle, or am I willing to give up the first world living I had? Because I'll be honest with you guys, for my family, we still choose to attain the lifestyle that we had in the US in many different aspects. We like to live near the modern hospitals, we like to have access to the American produce, and be near shopping centers and malls. And I already know what I'm going to hear in my ear, Evan, you're not experiencing the Philippines. But that's just us guys, and even with that, we still save on several areas in cost of living. And you know what? One thing that has honestly really annoyed me with the Philippine expat community is that there's channels that will say stuff like, are you willing to sacrifice a lot? Are you prepared to feel lonely? Are you willing to endure and stay here despite the obstacles? Will you stick it out through the challenges? Do you have the patience? Are you willing to live below your means? And you know what? I get it. These are legitimate questions, but if you're moving to a place that you believe in your heart of hearts will provide you a better lifestyle, then you shouldn't have to ask yourself these questions. They're kind of depressing questions. It's almost as if some channels paint the Philippines to be some sort of prison. Yes, some sacrifices will be made. Yes, you do have to have patience, but you shouldn't have to live a semi-miserable life just for a low cost of living. In my opinion, people get too caught up on the low cost of living factor of living here instead of focusing on if they'll actually enjoy their life here. So leaving behind Western life is a tough adjustment for many expats to make. And so I highly suggest be true to yourself and don't be ashamed to admit that you like to live a certain lifestyle to be happy. You know, my family, we didn't lie to ourselves saying that we'll be happy living on $800 per month when moving here, as some of these videos suggest. Now, every person, every family is different, but that's personally just us, and I really suggest just be true to yourself, guys. I don't want you guys to get caught up in the Philippine YouTube rabbit hole of all these expats promising you that they're happy with their life here. And hey, maybe I'm just seeing something different, but from what I see, a lot of the time, they're just saying this because they're so infatuated with the low cost of living, when in reality, they miss the old life they had. So I'll be honest, this is not one of those channels that will push you to live on as low of a budget as you can, but you can definitely do that here in the Philippines. So just be true to yourself. If you genuinely desire to live the quiet and slow life, which by all means, I'm not denying that a lot of people do, a lot of people want to move here to the Philippines to leave the rat race, then definitely do it. But if you grew up living a certain way and it's too much of an unnecessary adjustment for you, then don't do it. So at the end of the day, while some are able to adjust to life here with time and genuinely enjoy it, others on the other hand don't find satisfaction in it. It all depends on you. Now, for the second struggle of moving to the Philippines, that is people that keep their word. Filipino people are generally trustworthy, but from our personal experience, we've come across a lot that haven't kept their word. Part of the reason is that many Filipinos, though they hear your instruction, they like to do it their own way. And honestly, I don't blame them because I'm the same way too sometimes. Another reason is because many Filipinos have a hard time saying no. It's part of the culture to be agreeable. This does come with its pitfalls though, because you'd rather have someone that gives you an outright honest no instead of making last minute decisions. So oftentimes, instead of hearing no, I've heard a lot of I'll see, maybe, I'll try, but. For example, in our personal experience, we've met a lot of of people that wanted to start business ventures here. So they'll tell us, oh yeah, this is my purpose and I'm very passionate about this business. And then once they get the funding and they're comfortable, they don't work with the passion that they originally told us about. They get lazy and complacent. Or even when someone tells you that they'll attend an event, they end up canceling it last minute for something else. And so your experience can definitely be different than ours. There are still a lot of Filipinos that take their word seriously. When they say they'll get it done, they'll get it done. And I don't want to give off the impression that all Filipinos don't keep their word, because that's simply not the case. But at least for us, it happened several times where there was a lot of talk but not a whole lot of walk. We've met a lot of people who've made empty promises here. And there's been several times where big plans have been made, and we always take it with a grain of salt because many times it doesn't happen. So overall, not all Filipinos are like this, but this is our personal experience. Now for the third struggle that we'll briefly cover, that is traffic. It's no secret that the traffic here in the Philippines is among the worst in the entire world. As I've mentioned in the past, many things in the Philippines is actually in close proximity, but it can take up to several hours just to get there because of the traffic. A destination that's only 15 minutes away without traffic can take upwards of an hour with traffic. I remember when we first arrived here in the Philippines and we were checking out several different places, it felt like the majority of our days were spent in traffic. Not only was I not used to it, but also Manila has terrible traffic. Because as you already know, driving here is like every man for themselves. The traditional traffic laws that you're used to using is practically non-existent here in the Philippines. So as long as your car makes it to your destination in one piece, consider that a success. Now for a minor struggle of moving to the Philippines at number 4, that is microwaves and fridges are not used. So this is not a huge deal, but you'll find that many Filipino households don't use microwaves and fridges. To heat up food, most will use their stove or eat it lukewarm. When I first learned of this, I had to let it register in my mind because it was just so odd to me. But that's just part of the lifestyle, whether it be for financial reasons or non-practicality, they just don't use many of these things. Moving on to the 6th struggle of moving to the Philippines, that is the sounds. As I mentioned in the past, common sounds that you'll probably get fed up of hearing here in the Philippines is crowing roosters, karaoke in the middle of the night, dogs barking, and loud diesel vehicles. This is especially the case if you have a lot of neighbors. Of course, we all want restful nights without hearing karaoke at 2 a.m. in the morning, and we want peaceful mornings without hearing roosters crowing. So I have a few suggestions. 1. Ask your neighbor to lower the karaoke or shut it off past a certain time. 2. Live far away from neighbors. And 3. Just eat the roosters.
Please, no! No!
But overall, depending on where you live, these are sounds that you'll likely have to get used to. And especially if you live in the city, loud and smelly diesel vehicles are very common. Now for the 6th and last struggle of moving to the Philippines, that is the humidity. If you're moving from a cold place, you may actually prefer the sunshine humidity over the dark and cold weather. But for many expats moving here, the humidity is simply too hard to handle. Usually during the burn months, the weather is not that bad. But during other times of the year, the weather can get hot, humid, and sticky. So get ready to crank the AC because sweating in the middle of the day or night is not fun. But that's just part of moving to a tropical island. You'll experience tropical weathers. So there you have it, savvy expats. That is part 2 of the struggles of moving to the Philippines. If you found this video useful or want to see more content like this, let's get this video to 500 likes, and we're also close to 10,000 subscribers, so be sure to subscribe if you want to support the channel. And so thank you for watching, savvy expats, and I'll see you in the next video. God bless.